The truth, like a photograph, often develops in the dark. In the quiet basement of the St. Bernard Parish Courthouse, a man named Gerald Hutchkins knows this better than most. His world is one of musty boxes and the soft, perpetual sigh of settled dust. He is a clerk, a keeper of records. His job is to preserve the mundane ledgers of a Louisiana parish, land deeds, tax rolls, the dry arithmetic of daily life. But one evening, his gloved fingers brush against a set of volumes bound not in official leather, but in scarred, stained hide. The spines read simply, Armand. He opens the first. The paper crackles with age, the ink faded to a ghostly brown. He expects inventories of sugar and hogshead, of tools and acreage. And they are there. But then his light falls on a different column. A colder ledger. Entry 142. Rebecca. Female. 10 years. Condition, white. Status, slave. Mother, Celeste Mulatto. Father, unknown, white. Value, $900. The breath stills in his lungs. He turns the page. Entry 143. Charles. Male. 7 years. Condition, white. Status, slave. Mother, Hannah Quadroon. Father, owner, Armand. Value, $750. Condition, white. In the silence of the basement, those two words scream. They're a clerical error that is not an error. They're a secret written down. A truth the system never meant to expose, but which a bookkeeper's compulsive hand recorded anyway. Gerald looks up, as if the ancestors themselves might be watching from the shadows. His eyes land on a faded, framed clipping on a far wall, a relic from some long-ago historical display. It is an engraving from Harper's Weekly, January 1864. The caption reads, "Emancipated slaves, white and colored." The children in the picture stare out. One of them is a girl named Rebecca. And in that moment, a line is drawn. From a ledger in a basement, to a photograph in a magazine, to a truth that was never meant to be connected. This is the story of that line. New York City, 1863. The air in the Broadway studio of photographer Charles Paxson is thick with the chemical tang of collodion and ambition. Before a massive wooden camera, two children stand unnaturally still. A boy, Isaac, aged 8, dressed in a miniature suit. A girl, Rosa, just 6, wearing a fine dress with a cape and petticoat, a fancy hat perched upon her head. Her hair is blonde and silky. Her complexion is fair. To any eye, she is a white child. The shutter clicks. That single image, titled Isaac and Rosa, Emancipated Slave Children from the Free Schools of Louisiana, will become one of the most potent weapons in the final, grueling years of the Civil War. Printed on cheap cartes de visite, it will be sold for 25 cents to raise money for schools for freed slaves in New Orleans. But its purpose is deeper than charity. It is a calculated, explosive piece of propaganda. Its goal is to confront the weary Northern public with an unbearable contradiction. Rosa Downs, to all appearances, is a white child. Yet by the brutal one-drop rule of American slavery, a rule that decreed any known African ancestry condemned a person to bondage, she was colored. She was property. Her father, a white man, was at that very moment serving in the Confederate Army. Her mother, a bright mulatto, lived in poverty in New Orleans. Rosa's existence was a testament to the pervasive, violent exploitation of enslaved women by white masters, a reality the genteel myths of the South worked tirelessly to conceal. This photograph was designed to rip that veil away. A century later, in his basement, Gerald Hutchkins traces the faded ink of the Armand ledgers. He is no longer just a clerk. He is an unwilling detective. The ledgers are not just lists, they are biographies of misery. Each entry for a human being is as clinical as that for a mule or a wagon: name, age, sex, color, condition, value. Condition, white. He begins to cross-reference. He spends nights under cold fluorescence, building a wall of clues, ledger pages, maps of long subdivided plantations, snippets of oral history recordings from the Louisiana Digital Media Archive. He finds a pattern. The ledgers do not just note white children, they meticulously chart their genealogy, mulatto, quadroon, octoroon. They're a map of sexual violence written in the dry language of inventory. He learns of the fancy trade in the New Orleans slave markets, where light-skinned enslaved girls and women were sold at premium prices as concubines, their refinement making them luxury commodities. The children in his ledger were the products of this system. Their white paternity did not free them. It made them more valuable and trapped them in a specific, grotesque kind of horror. The ledgers were the cold, administrative truth. The photograph was the fiery, emotional appeal. They were two sides of the same terrible coin. In the winter of 1863, a man named Philip Bacon arrived in the North with a small group from New Orleans, 3 adults and 5 children. 4 of those children, Rebecca Huger, Charlie Taylor, Rosa Downs, and Augusta Bridgie, had fair skin, light hair, and European features. They were dressed in fine, middle-class clothing. They looked like the children of the very people who would see them. This was the strategy. The abolitionist movement, facing war weariness and racist backlash in the North, needed a new tool. Abstract arguments about morality were failing. So they personalized the horror. They gave it the face of a child who could be your child. Harper's Weekly published their portraits with searing biographies. Rebecca was a slave in her own father's house, serving her white half-sister. Charlie had been sold twice, the first time by his own father and owner. Rosa's father was in the rebel army. These were not slaves. They were Rebecca, Charlie, Rosa. Back in Louisiana, Gerald's investigation hits the same wall the children themselves faced, the wall of silence. He contacts local archives, meets with elderly residents, tries to trace descendants of the Armand plantation. Doors close. Polite smiles mask discomfort. Why dig that up? They ask. It's painful. It's over. He realizes he is not just researching history. He is confronting its active legacy. The system that created those ledger entries did not vanish in 1865. It adapted. It became Jim Crow, redlining, and a polite, pervasive desire to forget. The most stark proof of that system's reach came in Philadelphia in December 1863. Philip Bacon took Rebecca, Charlie, and Rosa to the St. Lawrence Hotel. They were well-dressed, well-spoken. Initially, they were welcomed. Within hours, the landlord demanded they leave. The children, he said, had been slaves and must therefore be colored persons. And he kept a hotel for white people. Appearance did not matter. The one-drop rule traveled north in the mind. The photograph could not erase the ledger. After their tour, the children vanished from the national spotlight. The historical record grows silent. They likely returned to New Orleans, to the freedmen's schools their images helped fund. They served their purpose, and then history turned its gaze away. What was life for a white slave child after emancipation? Too white for the black community. Too black for the white world. They existed in a cruel limbo, their bodies living reminders of a crime everyone wished to forget. Gerald eventually focuses on one name. Rebecca. 10 years. Condition, white. Through marriage records, death certificates, and Freedmen's Bureau files, he finds a trace. A Rebecca Huger appears in an 1880s New Orleans teacher registry. A line leads north to Chicago, to the Great Migration. He writes a letter. Weeks later, his phone rings. Dr. Elise Marie Thibodeau confirms it. Rebecca was her great-great-grandmother. The ledgers, she says, are the proof. The receipt. The photograph was the advertisement. But the pain was hers alone. Gerald now faces his own choice. He could close the book and let the dust settle. Instead, with Dr. Thibodeau's blessing, he creates a small exhibit. Not a spectacle. A quiet room. A ledger page beside a photograph. And one card that reads, her name was Rebecca. A record is not a memory. A memory is a choice. And this story is that choice.